everyone. Today I have the pleasure to talk with Heikki Nousiainen, CTO at Aiven. Aiven is a company that offers a fully managed open source cloud data platform, and we are happy to have it among the exhibitors and partners at this year's Data Innovation Summit. Heikki, thank you for taking the time to do this interview. Can you please introduce yourself? Tell us more about your professional background and what's your current working focus at Aiven.
Sure, and pleasure to be here. So my name is indeed Heikki Nousiainen. I'm a field CTO and a founder of Aiven. And in my current role, I do both advocating both open source and cloud usage for the benefit of developers, as well as talk to a lot of our existing customers and potential customers with the intent on being able to help them to succeed with their projects. My own background, I come from a software engineering background, so I love the productivity aspect of open source and cloud and say DevOps model way of working.
So can we hear more about open source? Can you tell us more about the benefits for organization of using open source as a platform for innovation?
Sure. So I mostly count three immediate benefits. First one is business agility. So being able to get started with open source tooling as with minimum time and minimum monetary commitments, and having the ability to deploy as many copies of the services one needs, or any size of the services, without kind of needing to go through lengthy procurement processes. Managing your own access to the data, so that kind of having a standard tooling, standard interfaces, we see a lot of innovation coming from actually being able to reuse and combine existing data that the organization already have. And open source can then provide that as standard API, standard toolings across multiple teams in the organizations. And of course, last but not least, is the control over your own data and processing, controlling over your destiny. So open source can guarantee you access and ability to process your own data, no matter what happens to any single vendor. And it gives you the freedom of choice of vendor, or running in cloud, running on-prem, whatever it is needed to meet the current business needs.
Thank you for emphasizing those benefits, but are there any common challenges that organizations should be aware about when they face open source platforms?
Yes, so I think we're all facing the challenges with finding the right talent. So the digitalization and modernization of ICT is going at such a pace that we need to find more and more talented people, and we need to ensure on how do we utilize the resources to the maximum business value. And in all fairness, open source sometimes comes as a bit of a box of tools and requires quite a lot of specific expertise to set up and run, and then perhaps support development teams. So we kind of see it's important to find the right partner or invest in-house on kind of expert team on managing these open source technologies.
When you mention finding the right expertise, can you tell us how Aiven helped this organization overcome the challenges that you spoke about before?
Sure. So Aiven is a software as a service provider for these open source technologies, and we offer a suite of open source technologies as fully managed services. So it's really about helping the development teams to be productive and being able to focus on the core business value creation. So Aiven, we offer things like Postgres, Apache Kafka, OpenSearch, M3, open source data technologies as fully managed services. And then for organizations, this means that the projects can get started quicker, and that the resources, the hard to find talent can really focus on the application creation and business value creation.
Good to know all of that. We are curious to know, are reliability and security possible with open source? What's your opinion on that?
I definitely believe so myself. So we've seen some major vulnerabilities recently on say OpenSSL and now Log4j just recently. But overall, I think open source security track record is pretty good. And what's more important to me is really the reaction and perhaps the uh, uh, momentum behind this. So kind of pretty much every business is nowadays using open source one way or the other, and businesses are starting to realize and understand the criticality of that open source success. And we see a lot of companies are beginning to invest and support open source efforts, either through setting up open source program offices in the companies, or then joining and perhaps funding things like Open Source Security Foundation.
It was very helpful to know all of that. Do you have any final advice and recommendations for any organization that's at the beginning of starting to think of using open source cloud data platform?
Yeah. So maybe a little bit biased, but we always recommend companies to really embrace open source for the benefits, and we suggest a strategic approach where actually business would prioritize utilizing open source even over say proprietary solutions. Maybe as a guidance, open source use in companies does require some governance, because it's so easy to take this into use. Then it is possible to end up with a lot of technologies that are essentially solving the similar set of problems. So we generally recommend perhaps setting up a developer experience team that can then evaluate and recommend and act as an expert group towards the development teams to support their development efforts.
Those were great tips, I have to admit. And from your perspective, how do you see the future of managed services like the ones Aiven offers? Do you see any trends in the upcoming, let's say, 12 months?
Yes. So I think the trends on utilizes managed services, utilizes some clouds, these are strong trends that will go on. Kind of the changing business landscape and the pace of change that is required from us is we essentially need to make sure that we can focus on what differentiates the business and what makes us successful. So we're seeing some of the companies even embracing, let's say, quote unquote, everything as a service. So utilizing every piece that they can get as a service, and then they're really focusing on a narrow item or area that makes the business different and successful. And for us, these are indeed the changing business or the fast pace of business changes requires a lot of innovation, requires a lot of faster cycles, how we can respond to those changing businesses. There we see managed services, open source, cloud usage, DevOps as a kind of strong enablers for business to thrive.
Great. And to sum up this talk, we'll mention that Aiven at the end of last year reached the status of unicorn. Congratulations on that. And we are curious to know what are the drivers behind that success?
I think this goes into the trends on changing. When we started Aiven, we wanted to build a service that, or we built a service that we would have wanted to exist at the time. We had our own need for setting up, say, Postgres services in many projects where we worked before starting Aiven, and I think we've been really blessed in a sense that we met a large market demand. We were not alone with this problem. We kind of everyone needs to go faster, and being able to think this from developer perspective and respond to that need, I think that's made us successful. Open source, I think it's been great to also that we are now in a place where we can really partner with these companies and help them to solve the business, not only providing services, but also kind of together working with architecture and making sure that the business is successful, the projects are successful.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for, in general, this talk and your time again. And looking forward to meet representative from your company at the Data Innovation Summit that's happening very soon, actually, on 5th and 6th of May in Stockholm.
Thank you very much.